passages of play, and let's see if he can string a couple more of them together and tie this series up. Alright, of course didn't take as long to load in this time, ladies and gentlemen. We are in to Daybreak for game number 2 in this best of 3 series. Spawning in the top right hand corner, representing Clarity Gaming, we have the Chilean Zerg. I know he has a lot of fans in the chat. Give it up for cKilleR. His opponent is going to be spawning in the bottom left-hand position as the Red Terran player, currently 1 game up after exhibiting some fantastic macro play on Cloud Kingdom. Can he follow it up with a 2-0 win, though? Or will his opponent grab one back? We'll find out in just a bit, guys. It is, of course, EmpireKas. So, these players, there are 2 of 16, of course, invited to the Vasacast Invitational. This is the first major tournament organized by Vasacast, who are the Italian, basically Italian StarCraft. That's how big these guys are. They do everything Italian language, StarCraft related, that you can think of. They go to tournaments like DreamHack and stuff and set up Italian streams and things like that. And they've decided that now's about time to expand their reach beyond Italy a little bit and organize an international tournament where a really cool stacked bracket has effectively popped out of nowhere. And it's really nice to see cKilleR in the tournament as well. So South American qualifiers, of course, meant that I believe kPoC and cKilleR qualified through that. kPoC, though, unfortunately falling to Star Eagle in the round of 16. So we won't be seeing more of him. But I think Star Eagle is going to be going on in the quarterfinals shortly. So we have a drone scout here, going to be annoying the SCV of Kas. And back at home, we actually see a hatchery opening come out from cKilleR. And it looks like that annoyance is going to be short-lived as the SCVs were switched, but a second SCV will come out to completely and utterly deny the drone additional annoyances. And wow, he's actually doing a lot of frustrating damage on these SCVs. Needs to be careful he doesn't lose one there. 5 hit points on that SCV, and cKilleR might come in for a banzai attack, being chased away. Great micro from both of these guys, trying to get every little edge they possibly can, but now the first Marine is going to come out, and cKilleR should know that his potential time for doing something like that has passed. Command center immediately going down once the drone leaves. He has not scouted it, but might be able to presume it's on the way a bit later. Marine is going to be popping out to the watchtower location, and the drone will probably be wise to get the heck out of dodge there. Yep, there we go. And then we have the pull coming up from cKilleR. Note, not an extremely early gas here. We're not going to be seeing a super fast Zergling speed or anything like that. But we'll see what he can come up with a little bit later on. cKilleR played a decent game last game. The problem is he just kept losing expansions towards the end. There was a really nice passage of play where cKilleR was constantly sending SCVs into the third base and into the natural of Kas, and basically sieged up, if you guys remember, with Zerglings, the infrastructure in the main. He was doing so well, as we do see Kas actually going to be mixing it up here with a very early third command center off of 1 barrack. So taking a little bit of a risk here, hoping there isn't some sort of super early aggression coming out of cKilleR, and this is quite consistent with his macro style. cKilleR, though, as I was saying, he had a really nice passage of play in the last game. It just didn't quite do enough to cripple Kas. And as a result, because Kas was non-stop denying the new expansions of cKilleR, it meant that the income carried him to victory towards the latter stages of that game. So I'd like to see small tweaks be made from cKilleR rather than a completely different strategy be employed, if that makes sense. I think if he makes small tweaks and does a little bit better in the mid-game, he would have been able to really take the endgame fight to Kas a lot more evenly. In the meantime, guys, we see 2 gases being taken in the natural at the moment for cKilleR. So once again, trying to keep his gas information away from Kas in case he decides to scan the main. So if he does and wants to hunt for any tech, he won't see any gases taken there, so keeps his opponent guessing just a bit. And it looks like an Overlord is going to go down here, and that's actually going to supply block cKilleR. That is not something he would have wanted at this early stage. Really nice scouting with the Marines here, so Kas very in tune with the paths that Zergs use to send out their Overlords at this early stage of the game. And we actually see this Overlord peeking in, seeing a bit, but not too much here, as the factory going to be popping down on that reactor very shortly. And wow, look at this double engineering bay coming out from Kas. So a very macro-oriented / greedy build here. He went a very fast 3 command center, which I believe has been scouted. Yes, it has. And he's actually following up with 2 engineering bays as well. So his army size is 5 at the moment. KAS not particularly caring for that early game army composition, and because he actually denied the drone that went down to the 3rd as well, I wonder if cKilleR is going to be a little bit more wary. He will put his natural 3rd base rather down anyway, but KAS won't have very many units early on. Let's see what cKilleR decides to do with that information. Double Evo chamber now going up behind here. Will this Overlord scout both engineering base? No, he only sees 1 at the moment, as the first 2 Hellions pop out, and we have a 2nd and 3rd barracks, so we're not going immediately into more factories. Note that also, no gas has been taken in the natural for KAS at this point. 3rd gas being taken for cKilleR inside his main base right now. We can see KAS is going to be moving out, just grabbing that watchtower, waiting, I think, for enough units that he wants to be able to push in. But he can also see the creep being spread. Is he going to attempt? He should really come up this north side and see if he can, like, try and splash damage all of these creep tumors at once. But it looks like these queens, man, they're really, really brave. They're just popping out off of creep. They don't care. Honey Badger queens here, just going to be marching out towards the center of the map, driving these Hellions back. A little bit of micro here against the Zerglings. They need to be careful, though. They get roasted significantly more easily, usually with a touch of salt. And now the 3rd base is going to be harassed. It will be tickled. Hellions, of course, do not do very much damage at all to hatcheries. And behind this, we have a 3rd base up for KAS, thanks to that early 3cc. We can see he's actually switching it up into tank production very soon, so we are going to be going into Marine Tank. 5 reactors going down on these barracks are no laughing matter at all. We've got Stim about halfway researched. No combat shields hasn't been started yet. And the starport with the reactor is going to get finished very quickly indeed. 1-1 upgrades currently being researched. Note that that's melee rather than ranged upgrades coming out from cKilleR at this point, so he's not looking to go into any sort of really heavy roach compositions in the near future, otherwise that would actually be more helpful for him. Instead, these links are just going to be sent around possibly to the 3rd base location, since he sees with this Overlord that it's building. KAS also knows this Overlord is here, so he'll know to have to defend at least a little bit when this run by comes in. That's a lot of links though, and will they actually be able to get a full surround on these Marines? Yes, they will! And that's a pretty nice little pick off there for cKilleR. Is he going to go in and try and pick apart some SCVs? Yes, he is. There are a decent number of Hellions. Sending 2 or 3 Lings out to see if he can do maximum damage here. Is he going to get a few more mules? He came very close to picking up a large number of SCVs, but as we can see, a large number of them are just on half health, really. So the amount of damage done there, only 2 workers killed. It could have been a lot more if he had a few more seconds worth of time. In the meantime, this Overlord still just kind of chilling out here, waiting to come in and spot, but he has actually already scouted once. He sees the double engineering base, sees all of the reactors, and in fact this Overseer is just being left completely unchecked next to where Marines spawn. So he's being rather brave here, Mr. Overseer here. It looks like neither player has really noticed that at the moment, but hey, that's completely fine. He even sees the medevacs popping out as well. So there must have been some sort of peace treaty there. Maybe they agreed to sit down, have a cup of tea, say, look, we're not involved in the war, mate, wouldn't worry about us. Macro hatchery going down in the main base as well, and cKilleR now starting with a decent amount of creep spread. Look at the number of creep tumors here. He should be able to get out sort of around this area of the map in another minute or 2 if he keeps this up. And I like that he hasn't neglected both paths of the map. He's actually going around both sides of the center, which is really cool. We have a medevac drop coming down here as well from KAS. Let's see if it does any damage, because it might actually fly into the Overlord vision right here, and indeed it's going to, so you'll probably have to drop it. And yes, he sees the Overlord. Is KAS going to drop the Marines? No, actually, he's just going to fly straight past. So, has this been noticed? We have the Queen injecting the hatchery now. Let's check it out. Oh, that's a lot of infestors popping out, though. Needs to be very careful. Here comes the medevac into the 3rd base location. The Queen starts hitting it. And there's the Spore Crawler as well. And, oh, that's not being microed the best. Where is medevac boost when you need it? And there's the drop going into the 3rd base. A decent number of Marines there, moving the drones out. And simultaneously, we have a big push onto creep over here towards the 4th base central location. The army is going to be able to pick up the drop. But let's see what happens over here. Alright guys, the hatch does get cancelled, so it doesn't get picked off yet by KAS, so we have 3 base Zerg versus 3 base Terran. That's going to be frustrating. A little bit of a fungal on a tank and a couple of Marines, but it's not going to be enough to sway KAS to completely full on return. Or is it? He's actually moving back on the creep. He's saying, how dare you pick off my units when I'm trying to move away. I don't like this at all. I'm going to come in and try and do as much damage as I possibly can. So KAS changing his mind when he saw that army composition, basically thinking, hang on, the infestors look pretty naked, and he'd actually be pretty right in that assumption. coming in towards the third base. Now 157 versus 111 supply. Is cKilleR going to fall for a second game in a row here? And the Infestors don't really have much energy, and they're powering through the Infested Terrans. This is looking like the third base is going to go down, and Kas might be able to win this second game with this push. Some Links coming in from behind, but imagine if that was with one more Fungal as well. That would be so much more effective. As it stands, though, so many Marines. They're on such low health, but no Fungals available, and this third base is going to go down. So close in terms of energy, and now reinforcements are here as well. It looks like Kas might be able to win game number 4 with a very, very solid mid-game push. 2-2 already on the Marines and 1-0 on the factory units. We're going to see a bit of a stand here from cKilleR at the natural expansion. He's making a bunch of Banelings as well. His upgrades are also 2-2 on the Zerglings, it's worth noting, but these Infestors have next to no energy at all. 80 SCVs versus 61 drones, but it's this standing army that's very scary at the moment because cKilleR is on 2 bases, and we have a 4th base now up and being made into a planetary fortress from Kas. And look at this, just moving away. Knows that he's done a lot of damage, just going to be moving out, but here we go. cKilleR going to try and flank with 2 hits. Oh, good God, those Baneling connections are amazing! Did you guys see that, ladies and gentlemen? That was a, I'm not actually going to quote it because it's a little bit rude to quote on stream, but that was Destiny-esque in the way that the Zerglings came from the front, and the Banelings absolutely demolished everything in their path from behind. And now we have 2 medevacs and 1 siege tank just sort of out in the middle of the map. They will be joined by another army. The problem is Kas is currently at 170 supply versus 94. We have a lot of Corruptors coming out and 3-3 on the way for those melee. And a good delay there with the Fungal, but he needs to preserve some energy for a little bit later, trying to run down the energy on those medevacs. And this is going to be very tricky indeed. The Greatest Spire is complete, but there are no Broodlords out on the field just yet, I believe. No, there are not. So 2 Broodlords morphing now, but 2 Broodlords will not be enough to push this back if the Marines have their way. The third base once again gets denied. If we take a look at the mining right now, cKilleR's still doing a decent amount, but it's not going to be enough to overcome the deficit. GG, well played, good luck, and Kas takes out Cloudy Gaming's cKilleR 2-0.